The lights on, he says.
Lights are on today, so there you go. Hey, chapter 14, human heredity. We've already seen the heredity word. It kind of goes along with the last chapter we've been talking about, but this chapter is very specific to just humans. It's an interesting chapter. It's actually, I think you guys will like it. Before we get into the interesting stuff, though, let's go over some of the terms. The first term I want you guys to get familiar with is the word genome. Kind of has the word gene in it, which, yeah, has something to do with it. Yeah. Full set of genetic information in an organism. In other words, it's a real general term. It actually sounds fancier than it really is. If you refer to the human genome, you're referring to all the genetic information that makes a human human. So, people that are researching and doing research on the human genome are talking about all those genes that are specific to the human race. Okay, remember, way back when, I'll compare, I worked in a lab prior to becoming a teacher, and I worked with tomatoes, and this word was used all the time in the lab, but we didn't talk about the human genome, we talked about the genome of a tomato plant, okay? So we would talk about, well, and the genome of the tomato genome consists of these genes that are different from human DNA, kind of deal. So a genome is a very general term, just kind of referring to all the genetic material in an organism. Now, human genome consists of 46 chromosomes. There was we even saw a movie that was entitled The Human Genome Project. Remember, this was that movie that had talked about Tay-Sachs and cystic fibrosis. And I think there was even another day in class where you got to see a little bit more of the movie. Not all of it, but a little bit more. That movie was about basically this huge project that started about 20 years ago and ended about 5 years ago, so it took like 15 years. It was basically a project to come up with basically a map of the human chromosomes. The poster I have on the wall over here behind the sin is a result of that project. In other words, you have all the human chromosomes here, and they basically are showing, like on chromosome 6 over here, the gene for whatever is located on chromosome 6. It's like a map, it's like a road map of what genes are located on what chromosomes. That's huge. That was huge information. So after that project, they knew where the gene for cystic fibrosis was located. They knew where the gene for Tay-Sachs was located. They knew where the genes that control eye color are located. It was like a map. It was awesome. It was a great, great project, but of course it took like 15 years. It took a long time, and they were even using state-of-the-art robots that you saw in that movie, robotics, and they kept breaking down. Robotics and everything else, huh?
Too much work.
It's still a lot of work.
Exercises my brain too much.
You know what? Scientists are. You got to have patience, and you get more patience as you grow up. You got to have patience, and you have to work real hard. You know, it's kind of a different kind of job.
Brag about that.
Okay, so the word genome, we saw this word. You heard the word allele last chapter. Remember, we represented alleles by either capital letters or lowercase letters, big A or little a, for example. That was an example of an allele. If you stick two of those alleles together, it makes up like a gene. So that would represent the gene for, I don't know, eye color or something. Okay. We also talked about the word chromosomes last chapter. Let me just kind of draw a picture of a chromosome here. And a chromosome is nothing more than a bunch of genes kind of located along kind of a strand of protein DNA. So a chromosome would look like that, and a bunch of genes make up a chromosome. this word genome then would kind of be at the very end because it kind of refers to all of these chromosomes collectively. So, genome, kind of, it's a really important basic word, but it is an important word. Okay, moving along. The word of the day is actually not genome, that's one of the words. Everybody got that? Cool. This is the only bad thing about a blackboard, I can't move fast. I heard you. You're saying that's not such a bad thing. This is the only way they did this when I was in school, so had to be a blackboard.
No, they did it when I was in school also.
Here's the word of the day. Karyotype. This is kind of cool. In fact, listen today, because you guys are going to be doing a project on your own tomorrow that involves kind of the information you learned today.
On our own?
On your own.
Nothing will fail.
A karyotype is a fancy word, but it means nothing more than a literal picture of your chromosomes. Literally, a snapshot photo of, in our case for humans, 46 chromosomes. There are special machines, there are special microscopes that can take cells and look at the chromosomes and click, take a photo of them. Okay? Then they can take them and they can stain them a little different so they actually, one chromosome looks a little different than the other. We'll get to that in a minute, but for now, a karyotype is nothing more than a picture of all your chromosomes. When they put together a karyotype, they arrange them like manually. They arrange them in pairs. We talked about pairs of chromosomes last chapter. Remember, we even termed them homologous chromosomes. So you kind of have to remember what that word means, homologous chromosomes. Remember, that refers to those chromosomes that, and their buddy. Remember, you got one from mom, one from dad, but they code for the same traits, but they could have different alleles along the two chromosomes. So when they put together this karyotype, they are very, very sure to arrange them in pairs next to each other. So that's why you'll see them when I show you a karyotype in a minute. You'll see them arranged as pairs. Also, they're arranged in decreasing size. So chromosomes are funny. They come in different sizes. So when they put one of these together, they put the big ones at the very top as chromosome number 1, and chromosome number 2 will be slightly smaller, chromosome 3 will be smaller, and all that. So they arrange them purposely according to size. Okay. A couple more things and I'm almost done. There are actually 2 major types of chromosomes in most organisms, but again, we're just kind of talking about humans now. One of those types are called autosomes. And I know this is going to be a lousy definition of what an autosome is, but I'm just going to be referred to as any non-sex chromosome. In other words, any non-sex chromosome. And all that means is those chromosomes have no part in determining whether you're a boy or a girl, so your sex. They have no part in controlling what sex you are. Those are reserved for your sex chromosomes, and those are the other types of chromosomes. These are the chromosomes that are going to be responsible for determining if you are a boy or if you are a girl. Okay, so you have to remember now that humans have 46 chromosomes. Well, 44 of the 46 chromosomes that humans have are going to be the autosomes. So obviously, most of the chromosomes that we have are autosomes. Only 2 out of the 46, the ones that are left, are going to be used to determine if you're a boy or a girl. And it's at this time that you do need to know that females have 2 X sex chromosomes and males have an X and a Y chromosome. By the way, the Y chromosomes, very small. That's how you can kind of tell the difference between an X and a Y chromosome on a karyotype. The Y chromosomes are really big things. Some fun facts here. And by the way, let's now that we have some of the kind of detail here, I want you guys to understand the big picture. And you guys are made up of a lot of cells. Like trillions and trillions of cells are inside of you, whether they're skin cells or muscle cells or liver cells or whatever. Every one of the cells in your body has 46 chromosomes. Okay, that's what makes you human. That's it. I just kind of want you to not lose sight of that picture, is the fact that every one of your cells has 46 chromosomes. So every one of your cells are going to have 44 autosomes and 2 sex chromosomes. Even your liver cells. Okay, so your liver cells are still going to have all 46, just because it's a liver cell. Kind of leads me to my next kind of fun fact. What makes males different from females? I guess, you've learned about some of this in health class, but it's interesting. What makes them different? It's really the Y chromosome, which determines whether you're kind of a boy or a girl. What I mean by that is the Y chromosome, which, even though it's really, really small, that's the chromosome that's going to contain all those genes that are going to be responsible for making all those proteins that are going to make you have boy features. The gene for sperm production is located on the Y chromosome. The gene for the development of male sex organs is located on the Y chromosome. Okay, all that is very, very, the Y chromosome is very much a part of giving their boys features. Kind of a fun fact, when we start off in the womb, like early on, when we're just pretty much kind of big balls of cells and those cells haven't really differentiated yet, we're kind of all unisex. We really don't, that Y chromosome hasn't kicked into gear yet. It's not making sperm, obviously. It's not, it's not doing that. We're not there yet. But it's really only a little later in the development that the Y chromosome and all the genes it contains kind of kicks into gear. And then as you develop in the womb, that's when boys become boys and girls become girls, kind of a deal. So it's very interesting. The X chromosome, believe it or not, and this is kind of what wigs everybody out, the X chromosome contains genes that really have nothing to do with whether you're a boy or a girl. Let me give you an example. The gene for hemophilia, which is a disorder where you can't clot your blood the right way, that's located on the X chromosome. The gene, what else do you think would be located on the X chromosome? Any thoughts? What are some of those disorders that men typically have? Color blindness. Okay? Color blindness is, obviously you're not able to see all shades of colors, or you're limited. That gene is located on the X chromosome. Muscular dystrophy, that's a disorder, a gene that's located on the X chromosome. I want you to kind of keep this in the back of your mind. I know you guys have heard of, there's actually some disorders or some traits, I'll call them traits because they're not all disorders. There are some traits that males are more susceptible to getting than girls, and it has to do with the fact that they only have one X chromosome. Those traits, like colorblindness. You guys know, it's much more common. Is anybody colorblind in here? Or know of somebody who's colorblind? Mr. Langhouse is, that's right.
Pete Davis is.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, there's boys. Boys. Now, there are some women that can be colorblind, but it's much less common. Kind of want you to try to see if you can understand why by knowing that. If the gene for color blindness is located, I don't know, maybe here on the X chromosome, okay? So it would be here and here as well. Boys only have one, girls have two. Think about this. Like every other trait, it's going to be either dominant, the alleles are going to either be dominant or recessive. Let's say color blindness. This female up here has one dominant, one recessive. But she's not going to be colorblind because one of those is dominant. The boys are kind of a little different. they don't have another X chromosome to mask if that one's not perfect. So what they got on that one X chromosome is what they're going to get. And if that means it's a recessive allele, that's what they're going to get. They don't have another X chromosome to maybe mask it. So this is one of the reasons that men actually have some traits that are, they're more susceptible to having some traits than females are. And we'll go into more detail about that later, but I thought it was kind of an interesting fun fact. Okay, I want to show you some pictures of karyotypes. That's the fun part, actually. So let's do that real quick. And this will lead into what you guys are doing tomorrow. Okay. You don't need to ask me that every time. Okay. This is a picture of 46 chromosomes. Count them up, there's 46.
I'm not even about to try.
Nah, don't. Just trust me. I wouldn't lie about something like that. By the way, you guys just got done taking a test where you talked about the cell cycle. Remember the pizza pie thing? And remember, most of the pizza pie was interphase, and then a real little sliver was like mitosis and cytokinesis. When you make this picture, the only time in a cell cycle's life that you can take this picture is when a cell's about ready to get ready to divide. Why? In other words, what does the genetic material look like in interphase? Do you remember? It's like invisible. It's like all thread-like. Doesn't look like that. The only time chromosomes look like that are in like prophase, when it's basically getting ready. It's kind of in division, in the process of about ready to divide. So chances are this picture was actually taken in prophase. Okay. Bunch of chromosomes just scattered over. But another thing I want you to notice is that, look, they have kind of a striped pattern. They've actually taken the chromosomes and they dye them, they stain them with like a special technique that we don't need to know about. But they kind of have this like banding pattern. There's some dark areas, there's some light areas, and this is how they match them up. So they're able to pair them up. Remember how I said they come in pairs? They'll pair them up not only on size, length, but also the banding pattern. So let me show you this. Those are those same chromosomes now paired up. Okay, it's human. Look, you've got, and they number them. And the bigger chromosomes are like at the lower numbers. So chromosome number 1, 2, 3, 4, these are the longest ones. All the way up to 22 pairs. So 22 pairs of these are those autosomes. So the autosomes are all of these chromosomes that are in spots 1 through 22. The sex chromosomes, they could call this 23 pair, like pair number 23, but they just don't. They just kind of refer to them as X or Y. You can see there, this is, they have 2 X chromosomes. Is this boy or girl?
Girl.
Girl, definitely a girl. The X chromosomes are both the same size, they're both long. Okay, that's easy to recognize that is a girl. The other thing you want to look for when you're looking at a karyotype is you want to make sure there are only 2 chromosomes at every location. Okay, that's not good. It leads to disorders if there's not. Okay, let's look at a couple other karyotypes of normal and non-normal. Let's look at a normal male. Okay, this would be a normal male karyotype. 2 chromosomes at every location. You got an X and you got a Y. 1 of each. 1 X, 1 Y. Okay, because remember the sex chromosomes, you only want 2 total, but you want 1 X and 1 Y. That's going to be a boy. Okay. Again, if you kind of look, they paired them up. They're kind of stained the same way. They have the same banding pattern. Okay. Let's start looking at a couple that are not so normal. Okay. This is a disorder called Turner syndrome. If you look at the lower right, you'll see there's an X chromosome, but there's only 1. Okay. This individual is technically female. I mean, it's female, but And in fact, Turner syndrome is kind of funny because they're really, you probably wouldn't even be able to notice really anything's wrong with this person, this individual. They have pretty average intelligence, so it's not anything like that. There aren't really any noticeable features like you see with some other chromosomal disorders. But usually, and including individuals like this, they are sterile, which means they cannot have babies. So usually if you have any type of chromosomal disorder that I'm going to talk about, these are people that cannot bear children. So this one's Turner's, and in fact, in terms of chromosomal disorders, this is one of the nicest ones to have. I mean, it really doesn't result in any major issues. Let's look at some other ones. This one's also not. This is also another chromosomal disorder that really isn't all that bad. But what do you see that's different?
21 has one.
Yep. Look at the 21 location. You should only have 2. You only should have 2 chromosomes. It's funny, you wouldn't think that just having an extra chromosome there would really be a big deal. This is Down syndrome. So people who have Down syndrome have always, at the 21 location, and the 21 location only, they have 3 chromosomes there. That 3rd chromosome is what leads to specific facial features that are common in Down syndrome people. Usually Down syndrome people struggle intellectually, not always, and to varying degrees. But that's the extra chromosome. You wouldn't think that it would. You would think it would just somehow fix itself, but it doesn't. Just by its presence there, it kind of causes some issues. Boy or girl?
Girl.
Girl. Okay. However, in the grand scheme of things, this type of chromosomal disorder is mild because a lot of times chromosomal disorders, the baby won't even be born. In other words, they're fatal in development. So this is a common source of miscarriages in women are when chromosomal numbers are not right. And we'll look at another one here if that's the case. Trisomy 10. Check out this one. Okay. 21 location looks fine.
10 has 3.
Yep. At the 10 location, you have 3 chromosomes. It's funny, having 3 chromosomes at the 21 location, yeah, you have Down syndrome, but you're able to be born, able to live a somewhat normal life. This individual didn't even make it out of the womb. This is fatal even before they're born. There's never been a case where somebody's actually survived to birth with this disorder. Trisomy 10 is what it's called. So it's just strange how it can, it just depends on which chromosome is not there. This one's trisomy 13. So obviously at the 13 location, we'll see 3 chromosomes. These individuals sometimes complete fetal development and are born, but are severely mentally retarded and physically malformed. They seldom survive beyond a few months' age. Trisomy 13. Check the 13 location. Okay. Has 3 chromosomes. Boy or girl? You should see it's a girl. Let me see if some of these other ones are boys. That's another girl. No, that's another girl too. Alright, trisomy 15. Were you going to ask me something? What were you going to say?
I'm not asking.
No, it's not.
These individuals do not survive fetal development. So, guys. Trisomy 16. I haven't looked at all of these.
Are any of them boys?
You know what? Let's look. Yeah, there we go. Okay, trisomy 16. Look at the 16 location. And this one's a boy. This one's a boy. Yeah.
What happens if I had 2 X's and 1 Y?
Nope, that's what we're going to next. That's not a dumb question. I've gotten all those questions today. 2 X's, 1 Y. Let's check it out.
That'd be
That's a problem.
Is it a he, she?
No, this is actually, it's not as obvious as you think. It is not as, well, that's probably,
it.
this is something called Klinefelter syndrome. No. As long as they have a Y chromosome, listen.
It's a boy.
It's a boy. Okay, it's male. It looks male, sterile, but like every other disorder, usually Down syndrome individuals are usually, not always, but usually they are also sterile. They usually can't have children. So it's not specific to the sex chromosomes about whether or not you could have children. The people with Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, all those are individuals that are sterile, including this. This is Klinefelter syndrome. The fact that there's a Y chromosome there is definitely male. The male, my understanding is, these males are a little lower intelligence. Their sex organs are not as prominent, so they're probably smaller. And I don't know if they necessarily have female parts or remnants of parts. But I haven't really heard of that. You honestly, guys, walking down the street, you probably wouldn't know something is up.
Can there ever be 2 Y's and 1 X?
Never. Hold on.
Sorry.
No, you're good. There's 3 X's.
Oh my God.
Okay. Female. But wait a minute. Let me see if they give more information. I don't know much about this one. No. I honestly don't know. They don't even say whether this one can go to term, like he could be, but obviously there's going to be issues. Obviously this individual, if they're even able to be born, are going to be sterile. But I don't know what this one's called, honestly.
It'll be a female.
It'll be a female. Let's look at another one.
Are you gonna have only one?
Okay. 1X and 2 Ys.
That's definitely male.
It's going to be male, but that doesn't mean it's going to be any more manly. I mean, that's not it. In fact, it's just probably going to be the opposite. They'll be sterile. They will probably have, mental difficulties, physical difficulties. I don't know. I'm not specific, but every time you start dealing with chromosome abnormalities, something's not
So basically,
right.
they'll have more issues than a regular male.
Correct. What those issues are totally vary from what kind of disorder is, and I'll be honest, I don't think this one says what this one is. I should look that up. They don't give any more details. Yeah, Kirsten.
How's it affect humanity if it has to deal with the X and Y's in most of them?
It does, for some reason, there are lots of genes for things other than sex development on these chromosomes as well. So some of these genes are going to be responsible for making proteins that do things like your cognitive abilities and your intellect. So, and those genes would work with other genes to create things that have to do with intellect. So you start kind of messing with the numbers, and you mess with it messes kind of with everything. So that's a really good question. One of the questions people asked me in the other class is, can someone be born with 2 Ys? Okay, 2 Ys and no X's? No. There's no possible way somebody can have 2 Ys and no X's. In other
What would
words,
they be?
it wouldn't even get past probably a few weeks of gestation.
So you wouldn't be able to
You wouldn't even, it's never even been born. It would never even be born. Obviously that means that some of the genes that are on the X chromosome are crucial for even development in the womb. If you don't have those in the womb, those genes, then it won't go on to make those proteins that you need even early on in development. So, I don't know. Let me see if I have any more. And then I will, trisomy 18. Okay. Here's trisomy 18. This is called Edwards syndrome. They have individuals may survive to birth, although with multiple severe and mental retardations. Boy or girl?
Male.
Male. Very good.
With the boy.
Look at the 18 spot.
I'll take
And there's one that's representing a female. Same thing. Trisomy 18. Edwards syndrome.
It doesn't mean anything when the chromosome's bent, does it?
No, that had to do with just the prep and the fact that when they laid it down and it just folded a bit. Yeah, that's a good question. That just has to do with it, kind of that. I think we looked at most of these. Hey, let me tell you about what you guys are doing tomorrow. Tomorrow, each and every one of you guys is going to be given.
One of the worksheets over there, they look confusing.
Yeah. Each and every one of you guys is going to be given a piece of paper with 46 chromosomes on it. So you're going to be given a human karyotype. They are not all nicely laid out like the ones you saw up in the picture, but that's your job. You are going to be cutting them out individually and arranging them by size with their pair. And there'll also be the banding pattern. So you have to have a careful eye to kind of arrange them with the way the stripes are. And you're going to be then, and there's like many different options. You guys won't have the same one. You guys are going to, you and your partner or person next to you won't have the same sheet. Then you're going to be telling me what's wrong with them. You'll write a paragraph on the back telling me what's wrong with them. And it may require you to go do an internet real quickly and type in, ooh, you have 3 chromosomes at location 10 or whatever.
I thought you said we were cutting those out.
That's your first job, is to cut them out.
Are we doing that all kinds of
Probably. It'll
I was
take
supposed to write them on the back and cut them out.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Good
We'll
point.
have to glue it on another paper.
Yeah, you'll be gluing them
Write
on.
it first.
Hey, you can turn that camera
You'll be gluing them on. Thank you. You'll be gluing them on another piece of paper, and then you'll just flip that one back. Yeah, you can turn that off.